Here is a short melodic example to illustrate the concept of harmonizing a melody. As you can see, I've already sketched through this, so please ignore some of my eraser marks. So we're in the key of G, and I've already mapped out our closely related keys are C, which would be if we take away an accidental, so taking away our one sharp would put us at no sharps or flats, so key of C. And then our other closely related key is the key of D. If we were to add an accidental, it'd be adding an extra sharp, which would be on C, which is our key of D. All right, so now that we've established that, the next thing you want to do is figure out your cadence points. So in a longer example, let's say it's 8 measures, your cadence points will typically be at the end of the 4th measure and the end of the 8th measure. This is a short example, so our cadence point is right there. So now that we've determined our cadence point, we want to figure out our harmonic progression. Now with a modulation, there's an extra step. So first thing right off the bat we're going to notice is that this note right here, C, has an accidental that's not in the key signature. It has a C sharp. So you have to ask yourself, does this C sharp in combination with what we have in the key signature, F sharp, match the key signature for either of these closely related keys? Yes, it does. The answer is D. D has both F sharp and C sharp in it. So at that moment in time, our key is going to turn into the key of D major, and it has modulated, starting with that note. All right? So when you're handling a modulation in your melody, you want to go back to the first place that you see that accidental that is not in your original key and figure out which of the closely related keys it's going to match best with. So here it's the key of D. All right, so moving on with the actual harmonization. Now we want to look at our melody and think about it in terms of cadence points, but also think about what your chords could be. If we're in the key of D, since we've modulated there, we want to think about what chords could have the note D in them. And I write them up top normally because that is an easy place to erase later on. So we could have 1 in the key of D. We could also have 6, and we could also have 4. So to decide which of these chords we're going to use, and let me backtrack just a little bit in case I skipped a step here for you. Our 1 chord would be D, F, A. Our 6 chord would be B, D, F. And our 4 chord would be G, B, D. That's where I got those Roman numerals from. All right. So now we got to ask ourselves, which of these do we commonly find at a cadence point? If you're not familiar with cadence points, I'll get back to you on that one. But we typically don't end on a 4 as our last chord. We can end on a 6 or a 1. I'm going to go ahead and go with 1 because that is a really strong way to end your example. 6 wouldn't necessarily be wrong, but 1's a nice safe bet. Now we backtrack just a little bit. We look at our next chord. It's our C sharp. We want to think about all of the chords that have a C sharp in them in the key of D. So that could be our 7 chord, which is C sharp, E, G. That could be our 5 chord, which is a C sharp, E. And it could be our 3 chord, which is F, A, C sharp. And it would actually be an, just our 3 chord. F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. All right, so you gotta ask yourself, which of these 2 chords commonly leads in to a 1 chord? 3 is out of the question. It just doesn't really tend to be followed by 1. Both 7 and 5 are dominant chords, meaning that they strongly lead back to 1, and so either of those would be a safe bet. I really like the 5 chord because it is the strongest, this provides the strongest cadence, 5 to 1. All right, so now we gotta kind of switch gears a little bit because we're going back to the key of G. Let's go ahead and look at our next note going backwards here, B, and And at this point, we're now going to be thinking about key of G. So in the key of G, our B chord, or our B could be in the, I'm going to write them down here because I'm running out of room. Could be our 3 chord. It could be our 1 chord. Or it could be our 6 chord. Sorry. So if it was our 3 chord, our notes would be B, D, F. If it was our 1 chord, our notes would be G, B, D. And if it's our 5 chord, our notes would be E, G, B. Notice how each of these chords has the note B in them. That's why they can harmonize that note. All right, before we actually decide on what we're going to pick here, let's go ahead and look at the other notes as well. So you have all the information and then you can decide how you want to harmonize it. So backtracking even further, we've got A. Our chords that will have A in them will be 2, A, C, E. It's going to be 7, F, A, C, F sharp, A, C. It's our key signature. And last one is going to be 5, D, F sharp, A. All right, so that is our A note here. And then we come back to B. So that means that all of these chords that we had for this B can apply over here too. So it could be 3, it could be 1, or it could be 6. All right, so now for our first 3 notes, we have these chords, and these chords. So typically at the beginning of an example like this, you want to firmly establish the key that you're in. It's going to not really make sense to start with a 3 or 6 because that doesn't allow your ear to hear the tonic, the 1 chord. So we're gonna